Let me get this straight. You're an alien from another planet. You came to Earth. You can fly. You're super strong and fast.
Yes!
You may not have a beginning, but now you have an end.
I'm gonna bring this shrine to your ego down on your head, along with 10 square blocks of Central City and everyone around.
I'm on a mission to find the secret HQ of Taskmaster, the big boss for these cheese clowns. And nothing better get my way.
So, Hydra is once again ruining lives because it's what they do best. This time, they kidnapped a bunch of regular people and experimented on them, giving them superpowers. The person is brainwashed to believe that they are linked to a superhero that shares similar powers. For example, for today's first point, we have Moon Squire. He believes that he is attached kind of to Moon Knight. His Hydra backstory is that he acquired his powers / contacted his Egyptian patron after finding some forbidden ancient texts while on an internet deep dive. It appears that Moon Squire has similar, if not the same, powers as Moon Knight, with a focus on his ability to darken any space he's in, literally absorbing the light to create his weapons. He's not the only person this situation has happened to. There were quite a few of them. Some of the other experiments have found each other and created a team together called the Assembly, now New Champions. Hydra created all these little heroes so they would cover the earth and subtly influence the world to view Hydra favorably. The New Champions have discovered their evil plan and made it their mission to find the new heroes around the world and bring them to the good side. Next up is Calico, a big win for the Horse Girls. Introduced in Uncanny X-Men in August, she is literally a girl with a magical horse. Together they are Calico and Ember. Since Calico is very new, there isn't much to go on when it comes to how much power she wields. However, she has given readers a taste, and so far she is awesome. Through a powerful mind link with her horse, she can transform them into various horse forms. All we've really seen so far is kind of like a winged flaming horse. Calico can either stay as she is and just look really cool riding on the back of a flaming Pegasus, or she can give herself a flaming suit of armor and a sword and look even cooler. To put it simply, I want to be her. Calico's backstory is tough, like many young mutants is. Born Becca Simon Panett, she grew up with a mother that kind of made her like a Rapunzel character. She couldn't access any media other than books, only animals were her friends, and she was once locked in a cupboard for 4 days, so you kind of understand the vibe there. When her house burned down, she got out of there and has been on the run ever since, eventually finding a family in a scrappy group of teens that call themselves the Outliers. My favorite recent-ish addition to the Marvel Spider universe is Spinstress or Spinderella. She is Princess Petra of Earth 423, and I have never ever wanted to be a character so bad. She is a Disney princess version of Peter Parker. She sings, she swings, and she even has her own MJ, Mary James Watson. He's a singing bard. Like Cinderella, she is banned from going to the big ball, but her fairy godmother swooped in to save the day. She gave Petra the prettiest dress I've ever seen and spider powers and sent her on her way. Now she is a crime-fighting princess living in a fairy tale land, and isn't that just the dream? Princess Petra did debut in 2022, so she's a bit older than some of the other people on this list, but no less cool. Phantasma debuted this month in Ghost Rider Robbie Ray's special, and she is awesome. She was only there for a little bit, but that's really all she needed. Roller derby skater by trade and Ghost Rider when she is put in high-stress situations, Isabella Alvarez might not have complete control over when she uses her powers, but she does have a good handle on them in the midst of battle. In the story, Isabella was supposed to be getting ready for a roller derby match, but she had a panic attack that caused a portal to open and release a bunch of demons. To deal with the demons, she had to become her Ghost Rider form, Phantasma. She has some super hot glue chains that she uses to corral them all, and of course she has the ability to open and close portals. She's completely fearless, as exhibited by her complete willingness to just jump through the portal at the end to make sure it closes with no real plan on how to get back. Phantasma was created for the New Champions variant covers event happening this month. We have another new champion, and her name is Liberty. She is part of the team Moon Squire is on, and she looks kind of like if Captain America and the Wasp mashed together. Her brainwashed backstory is she was a tech genius and was a leading mind in the advancement of hard light technology. She realized her true origins upon hearing a very loud scream. Liberty's power powers are flight, thanks to her wings, of course, but the wings can also shield her from projectiles and electrical shocks. She's also able to turn invisible, but it isn't like the invisibility is coming from her. She has this light star thing that reflects light, and that renders her invisible to the human eye, as well as cameras and infrared lasers. Liberty's character was teased last year, but 2024 has been this girl's time to shine. Thank you so much to the person that was like, you know what we need? Space Spider-Man. Because we did need Space Spider-Man. I like to have fun, so why not? Persephone Parker is Star Spider. She is also the coolest, and I love her suit. She is from Earth 1978 and debuted in the Edge of Spider-Verse 3 in April. She lives in the space station, Bronx, because that's where her family is from. She's on the station because she's working as an apprentice to Professor Osborn, and they study quantum engineering. Persephone is quite sneaky. She is secretly dating Osborn's daughter and also secretly a space superhero. She utilizes the spiders on the ship, but they're not actual spiders, they're nanobots that use Shi'ar tech. They are what form Persephone's cool outfit. Spider stands for Sanitation, Planning, Integrated Defense and Engineering Robots. Star Spider's biggest fight so far has been against Octavius and the Kree army that were trying to invade the station. Deathlock is a newer Avenger, and I think he's pretty cool. Deathlock is Miles Morales from Earth 807128. Originally part of the Champions, he ended up facing Annihilus. In that fight, Miles ended up passing on, but then he didn't. He ended up turning into Deathlock instead. From what I can gather from the comic, it's because Miles stole the cosmic control rod from Annihilus and broke it. It caused him to become more cyborg than man. Miles in this universe is very similar to his 616 counterpart. He's fearless and funny and fights like his life depends on it, because it always does. Deathlock is part of the Savage Avengers. Even though they are from separate Earths, there's a lot of timeline messes happening, and that's how they came together. Deathlock debuted in May of 2022, so again, a bit older than some of the other heroes on this list, but no less cool. Ransom, another member of the Outliers, is next. Again, super new, not much is known about his powers, but we do know for sure that he has no heart. And that is me being completely literal. Ransom doesn't have a heart in his chest. Instead, he has a black hole or something like that. Now, this is not fully confirmed yet, but it looks like Ransom is one of those mutants that absorbs energy, and that makes him stronger. I got this vibe because when Wolverine was getting in his face, he said, "Don't touch me," seriously, kind of like a warning. Then when he was sharing his heartbreaking backstory about the time he was kidnapped and his rich parents refused to pay the ransom, the criminals threw him out a window and used their weapons 14 times, which in Ransom's words only made him strong. So it seems like any force used against this guy will only make him a tougher opponent. Moving into vampire territory, we have Pia. Pia is a vampire, as you might have guessed, but she is special and different than other vampires because she isn't hurt by sunlight. This is because she merged with a rabbit familiar named Tito. Pia has been a hero long before she gained her vampire abilities. She actually met her rabbit because she was being chased by a vampire. She saved Tito, but then another vampire ended up biting her. The two found each other again, and presumably as a thank you, Tito merged with Pia, giving her the chance to still exist as she did before. Pia is completely fearless. I mean, as a regular human girl, she took on a vampire with no second thoughts, and then did it again multiple times. But she's also really emotionally mature for her age after everything she has gone through. Her strange academy story centered around the vampire pandemic and capturing the Darkhold boy. The Darkhold was being really cruel out of a place of fear, and when given the chance to attack him, Pia instead heard him out and even saved him from Agatha Harkness by giving him some added protection by giving up Tito. And then she kicked Agatha in the face, so Pia slays. And finally, Deathstream. He is another member of the Outliers, and he is really creepy. He exists between life and death. He can choose which of those states he wants to be in at will. His mutant abilities manifested at birth. He was born still, was revived, and that situation happened 4 times the day of his birth, and by the 4th time his body just started doing it himself. Deathstream, when he chooses to be deceased, has necromancy powers and can summon souls. The souls can possess him, giving him powers like flight, or becoming a black hole. Literally, one of his combat strategies, it's so creepy, he just turns into this black void with a head in the middle and beady red eyes, No thank you. It's clear that Deathstream is incredibly powerful, he's just really young. He doesn't really have a handle on his power yet, so when he gets possessed, he pretty much loses all control of his body, which nearly ended Nightcrawler in what was supposed to be a training exercise. Overall, he just seems like a really sad kid with way more power than he might know what to do with, which means his arc has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see how his story continues. Back in May, Marvel dropped the major news that Storm was going to be joining the Avengers. This is an incredibly exciting development that we thankfully won't have to wait long for, since the story will be coming out in August of this year. It's part of Marvel's From the Ashes era. In addition to joining the Avengers, Storm is also getting a brand new solo series. Storm will also be getting a new look, designed by Lucas Werneck. Marvel has posted what the costume will look like and a sneak peek of it in action with the cover of the first book of the new series. The team working on the comic are all known fans of Storm, so it's safe to say that our girl is in good hands, and fans are very excited to see what drama unfolds between her and T'Challa since their divorce. Melissa Gold's Songbird has been around for a while, going from Screaming Mimi, the wrestler, to Screaming Mimi of the Masters of Evil, but it wasn't until 2016 that she joined an Avengers team. It was Avengers Idea Mechanics, or AIM, and she was a double agent, also working with criminal John Garrett. Her cover was blown and she ended up fighting her teammates, but her morals were changing to wanting to be one of the good guys. So to make up for her double agentry, she became a triple agent with alliance to DaCosta. She was discovered again, but this time by the criminal Garrett, who then captured her and tried to get her to give him the location of the team's headquarters. She didn't, and Garrett was eventually neutralized. Songbird decided to take some much needed vacation time, deciding to go to New Jersey, where she was easily found by the new Thunderbolts and brought back into a fight. No rest for the wicked there. Her names are all sound related because her thing is she screams really loud due to her altered vocal cords. The screams have a variety of effects, like physically hitting someone, or manipulating them emotionally, or just hurting their ears. Robert Maverick joined the US Avengers in 2017 as Red Hulk. Maverick used Hulk plugins to become Red Hulk. A Hulk plugin is a device that allows its user to become a Hulk for 1 hour every 36 hours. It's like an artificial Hulk, and the short time period is there because any longer would result in the human's body experiencing health complications. While on the US Avengers, Maverick was targeted by a double agent, Kyle. Kyle infected him with nanites that would bypass the Hulk plugin and gave Hydra full control of Red Hulk. This was bad for many reasons, but it had a severe effect on Maverick's health. Hydra kept him in his Hulk form 800 times longer than they should have. So when he was finally turned back, his skin was permanently red and there was damage to his organs and body operations. Maverick was benched because of this, but he fought when it mattered, once donning the Iron Patriot armor to fight the OG Hulk. Tippy Toe is Squirrel Girl's sidekick. I know, I would not have expected that either. Squirrel Girl needed an army of squirrels for a battle, and Tippy Toe was the only survivor of all those squirrels, becoming then Squirrel Girl's permanent partner. The two have fought some truly incredible battles together. Tippy Toe has been where I'm guessing no squirrel has been before, like the moon to confront Galactus. Tippy Toe is not reliant on Squirrel Girl and will go on adventures all by herself, one time teaming up with Rocket Raccoon to stop Plant Man from destroying Central Park. The most shocking story in the biography of this squirrel's life has got to be that she once had some of the power cosmic in her. Tippy's choice of attire is typically a pink ribbon around her neck, so she is a fashion icon in addition to being a super squirrel. What can't she do? Another character from the 80s has joined the Avengers team. Gomi's backstory was that he was the younger cousin and lab assistant of this researcher that was obsessed with Marvel Girl. The researcher wanted to make his own Marvel Girl. First though, he created intelligent lobsters, the strength of a human, but we will get there in a minute. When the evil scientist couldn't create his own Marvel Girl, he decided to just experiment on his cousin instead, attempting to give him telekinetic abilities. It did and didn't work. He got telekinetic abilities, but they are super limited and uncontrollable. All Gomi can do is throw a blast of force in front of him. He can control the direction, but not much else about it. Gomi's sidekicks, pets, best friends, you pick, are the two lobsters mentioned before. They are named Bill and Don. Unfortunately, Don was stepped on by Devil Dinosaur, but Bill has lived long enough to see Gomi join the superhero initiative Avengers World. This went down in 2019. 2015 was a big year for Emily Guerrero. She made her debut into Comic Society society and joined an Avengers team. What a season out on the town. Emily might have been better known to some by her hero name, Synapse. She thought she was just a girl, but turns out somewhere in her family history is some Inhuman. She discovered this part of herself when the Terrigen Cloud moved into their house like it paid rent and encased her family in cocoons. It was after she exited her cocoon that she gained her powers, which are telepathy, literally affecting people's brain chemistry by manipulating the electricity running through their head, boosting immune systems, and suppressing the powers of others. Captain America saw her potential and recruited her for the Avengers Unity Division representing Inhumans. Her first battle as an Avenger was iconic. It was against Super Adaptoid. She mind-controlled a flock of pigeons and got them to attack it, giving the rest of the Unity Division the chance to take out the villain. No one is doing it like her. One thing we can count on for Steve Rogers is he is going to start an Avengers team. In the new story, Avengers Twilight, Steve is pretty old and doing what he does best, starting an Avengers team to save the world. And just a warning, from this point on, there will be spoilers for the Avengers Twilight comics. The world that this happens in is not Earth 616, its temporary assignment is TRN 1096, but in this world, the Avengers went through everything that they did before, but then Ultron gains control of the Hulk, enhances a bunch of supervillains, and leaks the identity of many superhumans. Of course, the heroes are blamed for all this, and the Avengers are disbanded, leaving the world to get worse and worse until it is a completely controlled society under constant S.H.I.E.L.D. surveillance. Steve Rogers has the super soldier serum removed from his body, meaning he retired and grew old. Thor went off-world, Iron Man lost his head literally, other heroes either disappeared, went underground, or were arrested. It wasn't until some weirdo decided to make a documentary that made Red Skull look good that Steve finally got up to fight again. Steve started working with the team Defenders. The team was able to replicate the super soldier serum, and Steve could Captain America once more, doing what he does best, leading the Avengers that I personally am calling this new team the Twilight Avengers. So I mentioned in that last point that Tony lost his head. However, Tony's son kept the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist Noggin in a containment unit so he could use his brain to puzzle out problems. Steve broke into the location where his head was being kept and stole Tony, and with the help of an electrical surge from Thor, was able to bring that head to life again, reviving Tony Stark. Now, Tony is on the Twilight Avengers as Iron Man once again. He has an android body and his head floats around in his helmet, but he is still the Tony we know and love. It's like he never left. Tony fights wearing his red Iron Man armor. After the big battle with Ultron, people were turning on the heroes. Iron Man was attacked, and that's how he ended up just ahead. Tony has a personal stake in this futuristic game as his son is a major player on the opposing side, leading to some very interesting character exploration for Tony's character. The Twilight Avengers series has given us two exciting new character debuts. One is Tyler, the Twilight Avengers guy in the chair, essentially. Since there are only 6 issues of this story, we don't know a whole lot about Tyler, but we do know that he is really smart, a talented engineer and mechanic, and a very capable fighter. He is described as a technological genius. Tyler is fearless and has very strong morals. Though he might not be on the front lines of every battle, he is working wonders from his guy in the chair position, overriding security systems, creating new tech for the team, or keeping an ear on transmissions. Maybe he will make his main timeline debut soon. And finally, we have Ramona Jones's Hawkeye. She was originally part of this world's Thunderbolts as Bullseye, but her morals were too good for the team. Upon being asked to harm an unarmed target, Ramona realized that the Thunderbolts wasn't where she wanted to be anymore. When Steve showed up to retrieve Tony, Bullseye helped him escape, and in the process, landed a spot on the Twilight Avengers. Bullseye is the new Hawkeye for this Earth. She was trained by the military to be a high-precision shooter with a 100% success rate. Thor was actually the one to deem Ramona as the new Hawkeye. When they met, he remarked that she had a great warrior spirit in her, so she has the Thor stamp of approval. It's unclear if Ramona has any connection to Jessica Jones, but I like to think she does because that would be cool. The Avengers Twilight series is out in full now and only has 6 issues, so a really quick read that has my personal stamp of approval I really like. Up first, Jenny Crisis is the latest Century baby, born on the stroke of midnight New Year's Day 2000. She is the spirit of the 21st century. Century babies are born at the beginning of a new century that eventually grow up to have like some superhuman abilities. Typically, their job is to change the world, and they don't usually age past their 20s. Jenny is taking her role as the 21st century baby very seriously. She will leave this century better than she found it. At first, she did do more harm than good, simply because she didn't know how important she was. She would have panic attacks and then some catastrophe would happen. Eventually, she put the pieces together and decided to take some time to herself to sort that out. Like most century babies, Jenny is abnormally strong and can listen to pretty much the whole world, enabling her to locate those in trouble no matter where they are. She can fire blasts of emotional energy and make those around her feel what she feels. This year, Jenny had a bad breakup and accidentally caused the world to break for 2 days. Then the outsiders showed up to neutralize her. Jenny proved that she wasn't a threat though, and she is now continuing her journey of self-discovery, and she debuted in February of this year. But speaking of the outsiders, they are pretty new too, technically. The outsiders operating right now are the latest version of the team, Outsiders 4. The trio is Luke Fox's Batwing, Kate Kane's Batwoman, and Jaquita Wagner's Drummer. The characters have all been around for a while. It's their team up that we've never seen before, and they do work quite well together, if I do say so myself. Particularly, I like Drummer's story. I think it's quite interesting. She is a refugee from a universe that was destroyed, but she survived because her invulnerability applies to continuity too. Outsiders Group 4 debuted at the end of 2023. Fleur de Lis has been brought back to the main continuity. She is French, which I'm sure you guessed. She works with the Justice League Europe as a mercenary and covert operative. She has enhanced abilities due to the cybernetic enhancements she's received. Her training turned her into an expert marksman and martial artist. She technically first debuted back in the 80s, but only had like 8 appearances. Now it seems she is getting some time in the spotlight after re-debuting in December 2019, and she has added 4 more titles to her name. That might be it though. She looked like she was pretty out of the game after Superman and the Authority 4, but we'll see. You never know. Everybody always comes back. There is a new version of Bruce Wayne that actually went to therapy. I know, I can't believe it either. He exists in Batman Gargoyle of Gotham's universe, so that is Earth 46. This comic is quite violent, so it's labeled 18+, but the story is really interesting, and it introduced a brand new villain that's very creepy, plus it sent Bruce Wayne to therapy. But even though he went, it doesn't mean it went well. The therapist in question might not have had the best intentions. Were they the one that put the idea of Batman in Bruce's head? We don't know yet, because they disappeared and took all their client records with them, leaving Arkham Asylum to rot and decay. I think the mystery is super compelling. The villain is ruthless, and the art is really fun. Every time Bruce Wayne's face is out, he is voguing. I love this comic. I love it. However, it's been coming out too slowly for my tastes. Only 2 issues are out, and it's been months of waiting for the next one with almost no concrete release date in sight. So I need everybody to get into their Gargoyle of Gotham era, because I can't have this getting cancelled. Thank you, team. Marilyn Moon Knight is next. She was a vigilante from the Wild Wild West back when Metropolis was just a little frontier town. She was the protector, essentially. At first, she was just a regular citizen, but then this outlaw rolled into town causing trouble. He was defeated by 2 people from the future, a man who could fly and a woman on a glowing horse. Of course, those future people turned out to be Superman and Marilyn herself. Marilyn saw the mysterious woman and was inspired to protect the little town, becoming the spirit of Metropolis. Behind every strong woman is herself. Marilyn lived a long life and passed peacefully, surrounded by love, but then of course that can't last. There is no peace for heroes, not even in death. She was resurrected as a ghost, and for her troubles received light-based powers that work best when manipulating moonlight. There is a catch: she can only exist in the moonlight, so only exist in the dark. Marilyn dropped in early 2023, and I hope they find ways to keep bringing her back, because I think she's really cool. Jarro is a little star with big dreams of becoming Batman's favorite Robin ever. He is so adorable. I want one. He even has his own little Robin suit. Jarro was created by Batman from a sample of Starro, but he is a good little guy through and through. He does call Batman Dad, and the two share a very special bond. He was raised to help the Justice League, and he was trained to fight. Just because his limbs are a little shorter and he's a star doesn't mean he can't hold a blaster. They can also turn into a larger version of themselves, known as the Conqueror. In that state, they release spores that latch onto a host to control their mind. Batman had to talk Jarro down when they got into that state in Justice League v4-29. Jarro is also capable of flight, regeneration, and is actually a certified genius. The brilliant little star debuted in late 2018. Elizabeth Marston Prince. She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment. She is new and not part of the main universe. Elizabeth is from the Wonder Woman Trinity universe, and she is Wonder Woman's daughter. The universe is a possible future, and there, Elizabeth grew up alongside fellow super kids Damian Wayne and John Kent. There were a few times the trio went on missions together as kids, defeating Killer Croc and visiting the moon. When she grew up, Elizabeth officially became the new Wonder Girl, but later decided to go by Trinity. Trinity is still pretty young and likes to mess with her friends, racing them or making them all go on a mission to a Greek cave where their tolerance for pain, honor, and skill are tested so they can ultimately enter the jail where the Sovereign was held. Two very different activities, but one thing remains constant: she messed with the boys. Elizabeth is her mother's daughter. She trains like her mom, leads like her mom, is strong like her mom, and is immortal. Elizabeth is pretty cool on her own, but the coolest thing about her is she is the first holder of the 3 lassos of fate. There is the gold lasso, the lasso of truth, a black lasso, the lasso of lies, and a silver lasso, possibly the lasso of secrets, but we don't know quite yet. A series of bad decisions led to Venadia being remembered for being a villain and not a hero, even though she trained her whole life to fight for good. Venadia is her vigilante name, but her real name is Vanessa. Vanessa grew up the way many of us probably did, wanting to be a superhero, but she trained her whole life to get herself in peak physical condition to eventually fight crime. At 18, she made her costume and set out to make the world a better place. She signed up for a post-human project being done by Star Labs. It promised to give people superpowers. Technically it did. However, the substances they used to achieve this affected the human body negatively, and Vanessa had a heart attack. But here's the thing, for these trials, she had to sign a lot of paperwork, and in her excitement, she didn't read it very well. So she signed something that said that if she were to pass, her brain could be taken out of her body and used somewhere else. Her brain was put into a robot designed to destroy the Titans. Robot Vanessa was told the Titans were actually evil imposters, so she fought them until Cyborg hacked her systems and Raven destroyed her. You either die a hero or have your brain harvested for evil because you didn't read the fine print. I'd like to remember Vanessa as a hero though, because she did do her best. Up next is the new Wonder Girl, Yara Flor. She is an Amazon of the Amazon. There have been Wonder Girls before her, but Yara debuted in 2021. Her mom was an Amazon who ended up in Brazil, and while in Brazil, she fell in love with a local deity, and then we got Wonder Girl. Yara was born in Brazil, but didn't grow up there. She was raised in Boise, Idaho, after her mother died. At 21, she traveled back to Brazil and quickly stepped into hero shoes, saving people from burning cars and meeting mermaids. She also ends up on Mount Olympus and received a Pegasus named Jerry. It's hard to see other people living your dream. Yara's powers include generally being a superhuman, but she is also capable of currently limited hydrokinesis. Part of her various training led her to being a master in archery, war, horseback riding, combat of all forms, and swordsmanship. Yara eventually joins up with the Justice League and has also fought alongside the Wonder Woman family. When Dark Crisis rolls around, she is offered a spot on John Kent's new team, which she actually rejects at first, but then Titan Tower is attacked and she reconsiders John's offer, ending up helping the team out because, you know, she's amazing. And finally, Olivia Desmond has barely graduated from elementary school and is already punching demons through walls. This little powerhouse goes by Nightbuster and debuted in November of 2022. She is the daughter of Blockbuster, and he is an awful father. He sold his soul for intelligence, but when his daughter was born, he renegotiated so that her soul would be taken if he were to die. That time came when Olivia was in like maybe 3rd grade. The demons came for her. However, Nightwing stepped in. Nightwing is Olivia's dad's worst enemy, and Olivia is Nightwing's biggest fan, and I love that. Olivia had been living with Raven for protection after that whole demon debacle, but then another demon came for her. She punched him through a wall, and then she was transferred to the care of the Amazons for her safety, and truly the safety of demons everywhere. As she is being left in the care of the Amazons, Nightwing asks her if she has thought of a code name yet. Remember, she loves loves Nightwing and rightfully hates her dad, so she combined their names because she thought it would annoy her father, and that's how we got Nightbuster. DC's new Absolute comics are just the gift that keeps on giving. The Absolute universe was created by Darkseid, a world where your favorite DC heroes don't have the advantages their Earth Zero counterparts do. So for Batman, that means he isn't rich, and that means he has to be way more resourceful to create all of his bat gear. The Batman costume in this comic is absolutely incredible and so innovative. I love that his bat ears are actually knives. I love that he can stand on his cape like stilts, similar to how a bat walks, and I love that the bat symbol on his chest turns into an axe. Every part of this suit is useful, and it just shows how clever this version of Bruce Wayne is. He still follows Batman's golden rule, no fatalities, if we can help it. He would always hit just close enough though. The other notable difference between this Batman and the Batman we're used to is he still has his mom, and his dad passed in a very different setting. Thomas Wayne was Bruce's teacher. On a class trip to the zoo, someone opened fire and Mr. Wayne shoved his class into the Bat exhibit, sacrificing his life for his students. The tragedy inspired Bruce's mission of justice. To gain the knowledge he would need for his mission, Bruce worked in almost every sector of the city, currently employed as an engineer. It's nice to know that even with all the odds stacked against our heroes, they still fight for good. Wonder Woman is also receiving the Absolute treatment, with her first issue releasing just a few days ago. This Diana didn't have the advantage of growing up with the Amazons on Paradise Island. Instead, she grew up literally in hell. She was taken from the Amazons by Zeus and brought down by Apollo to be raised by Circe on the wild Isle of Hell. This was a form of punishment towards the Amazon, as they committed some unspecified crime against the gods, but it must have been really bad considering it was also decreed that the word Amazon must never be spoken again. Diana still grew up with all the same powers she normally would, making friends with many demons along the way, but she never knew why she was the way she was. It wasn't until she matured that she went to her mother Circe and began asking about the forbidden word that she may never have heard but felt beating in her chest. Though Circe couldn't say it, she encouraged Diana to say what she was, told her about her heroic sisters, and ultimately let Diana go to become Wonder Woman. Absolute Wonder Woman fights to protect Earth from harbingers, preventing them from consuming the world. She fights with the Athena blade and her skeletal, fire-breathing Pegasus. The final panel of Absolute Wonder Woman features Diana in all her glory, wielding a new lasso, the Nemesis lasso. It's red, and according to writer Kelly Thompson, it dulls out more pain than the lasso of truth, and likely we will read about its origins soon. And finally, to complete this trio, Absolute Superman. Now we know significantly less about Absolute Superman simply because his comic isn't out yet. There is a preview available, and from that we learn that instead of Superman's parents, particularly his mother, being respected scientists and scholars, they were Kryptonian farmers in the part of town that the upper class don't often worry about. This Superman will still likely lose his parents because the tagline for his story is, "This Superman has no family, no fortress of solitude, and no home." So just going out on a limb here, but I think he's gonna lose them. The Superman that comes to Earth will also apparently be an adult upon arrival, and that's very, very different from most depictions of the character. Baby Superman obviously knew that something bad happened to his world and eventually learned what it was in full. But adult Superman will crash onto the scene with that anger fresh in his mind. So the big question is, will he use it for good or not? From the Wild Wild West comes Marilyn Moonlight, a vigilante active back when Metropolis was just a little frontier town. At first, Marilyn was just a regular citizen, but then an outlaw rolled into town and was causing trouble. The outlaw was defeated by two people from the future, a man who could fly and a woman on a glowing horse. Marilyn saw the mysterious woman and was inspired to protect the little town, becoming the spirit of Metropolis. Little did she know, the future people turned out to be Superman and Marilyn. Behind every strong woman is herself. Marilyn lived a long life and passed peacefully, surrounded by love, but then of course that can't last long. There is no peace for heroes, not even in death. She was resurrected as a ghost, and for her troubles she received light-based powers that work best when manipulating moonlight. The catch is she can only exist in the dark. Marilyn dropped in early 2023, and I hope that they find ways to keep bringing her back. Ranadorda and his flaming puppy Cadeo have leapt on the scene, literally. Ranadora means golden frog in Spanish. This new hero was teased in 2023's Batman Superman World's Finest 2021 in November of last year, but he was literally just shown in a big group and had a short moment fighting our leading heroes when they were on Earth 22. His Prime Earth counterpart didn't appear until Absolute Power 3 from earlier this year. Ranadorda seems to be a skilled acrobat and fearless, stepping up to the plate to fight against Amanda Waller's propaganda and help out the heroes. His fire dog is based on a spirit from Central American folklore, there is a protector version of this spirit, but also an evil version, which hopefully Rana Dorita gets more panel time and the evil dog is used somewhere in a story. Another new hero was teased alongside Rana in the world's finest comic. Her hero suit takes after a jaguar, and her name is Baruka. The name is inspired by the Baruka, an indigenous group living in Costa Rica. It seems like her jaguar suit is a suit. It has sharpened claws, and she is clearly very agile and strong considering she can jump so high. Even less is known about this hero than Dorita. She has literally appeared the one time, but since he got a hero feature later, hopefully she'll also get one in the future. I mean, there is the Justice League-esque team that already exists in Mexico, so maybe she could team up with them. Wonder Woman's daughter Trinity has been officially introduced into Prime Earth. Now, you might already know her from the backup comics in Wonder Woman Volume 6, but technically that version of her was from a possible future, and that possible future is now possibly confirmed canon. The Trinity comic in Wonder Woman 13 is her origin story as explained by Damian Wayne, and then the next issue's main story shows Wonder Woman actually molding Trinity from the clay and asking for life to be bestowed upon her. Will this Elizabeth actually grow up to be the Trinity from the backup stories that wields the three lassos of fate, or will she end up completely different? It remains to be seen. Jenny Crisis is the latest Century baby, the spirit of the 21st century born on the stroke of midnight New Year's Day 2000. Century babies are born at the beginning of a century that eventually grow up to have superhuman abilities, and their job is to change the world, and they don't usually age past their 20s. Jenny is taking her role as the 21st century baby very seriously. She is determined to leave the century better than she found it. At first, she did more harm than good because she didn't know who she was. She would have a panic attack and then something really bad would happen somewhere in the world. Eventually, she put the pieces together and decided to take some time to herself to sort that out. Like most century babies, Jenny is abnormally strong and can listen to the world, enabling her to locate those in trouble no matter where they are. She can fire blasts of emotional energy and make those around her feel what she feels. This year, Jenny had a bad breakup and accidentally caused the world to effectively break for 2 days, but then the outsiders showed up to neutralize her. Jenny proved that she wasn't a threat, and she is now continuing her journey of self-discovery. She debuted in February of this year. DC once again drew some inspiration from history for Joker, the world this year, this time creating the Polish hero Zawiza Black Knight, defender of Krakow, based on the real Polish knight, the Black of Garbo. The knight passed in the early 1400s, but DC seems to suggest that his legacy, or he, lives on. In this Joker short story, Joker is attempting to steal a famous painting of a clown, only to be stopped in his tracks by the Black Knight. His suit is fashioned to look like armor, and he wields a very sharp sword. He is not Batman, or a version of Batman, which he explicitly says, along with a promise that he doesn't have the no fatality rules, so the Joker better watch out. And finally, also from Absolute Batman, is a brand new super cool version of Alfred Pennyworth. Now, Alfred has always been that guy. He has always been good at everything he does, and there have been plenty of versions of him that have a past of being some kind of hero in his own right, but it simply never gets old. So in Absolute Batman, Alfred is a special agent for a British organization. We don't know which one yet. His current assignment is to return to Gotham City to gather intel on the Party Animals, the villainous group of the hour. He is highly trained in every form of combat, weaponry, he has a pretty sick motorcycle. Since this universe is meant to strip our heroes of all their advantages, Alfred doesn't know Bruce Wayne. In fact, he fought Batman on a rooftop and has been tasked with removing Batman from the picture, so he's really not on his side. And I'm excited to see that change, because there's already signs of a change of heart in the comic, which will be interesting to read. But what do you think? We are starting off with the new Wonder Girl. I am obsessed with Yara Flor. I think she is so cool. She is listed as an Amazon of the Amazon. I want to be her. There have of course been other Wonder Girls, but Yara debuted in 2021. Her mother was an Amazon who ended up in Brazil, and while in Brazil, she fell in love with a local deity, and then we got Wonder Girl. Yara was born in Brazil, but unfortunately did not get to grow up there as her mother was taken out, so she was taken to safety to be raised in Boise, Idaho. At 21, she traveled back to Brazil and quickly starts to be a hero, saving people from burning cars and meeting mermaids truly was not the vacation she thought she would be getting. She ends up on Mount Olympus at one point and literally trains with the gods and got a Pegasus named Jerry. The fact that this isn't my life is actually heartbreaking. Yara's powers include generally being a superhuman, but also she is capable of currently limited hydrokinesis. Part of her various training led her to be a master in archery, war, horseback riding, combat of all forms, and swordsmanship. Yara goes through a few more character building battles before it's time for her to join a JLA team. When Dark Crisis rolls around, she is offered a spot on John Kent's new team. We'll yap about that next. She actually rejects him at first, but then Titan Tower is attacked and she reconsiders John's offer, ends up helping the team out. She is my hero, and I hope she stays here forever. Like father, like son though, John Kent is following in his dad's footsteps and taking charge, creating the newest iteration of the Justice League. This new league is made up of Supergirl, Dr. Light, Booster Gold, Jamie's Blue Beetle, Ted's Blue Beetle, Damian's Robin, Jackson's Aqualad, Frost, Harley Quinn, and Frankenstein. That is quite the lineup of 10 young heroes. This team was formed in 2022's Dark Crisis 1 because the older Justice League members all perished and the worlds are pretty messed up and need heroes to keep their villains at bay. There were some more experienced heroes around, but they didn't believe the Justice League was actually dead, so they were busy out looking for them. The new Justice League was a band of misfits, but they had heart and determination and they were doing their best. Though the team didn't end up working out, it was interesting and it gave Harley Quinn the chance to show off her heroic side. Up next is the Ray. I know the character isn't like new. He existed before the last reset, but he is back on a Justice League team. Ray made his debut back into the main story now in JLA, The Ray Rebirth, in early 2017, joining Batman's new JLA that same year. I personally think Ray's story and powers are super interesting. He absorbs light and then can take it and direct the energy from it in light beams, rearrange molecules, create things out of light, and because the way we see is through light hitting our eyes, he can manipulate light, causing illusions. He is also able to make himself invisible by bending light. Ray claims that if he were to absorb enough light, he would never need to nourish himself again, so photosynthesis, but that's the only plant thing about him, I assure you. For most of his life, Ray was kept in the dark about his powers by being literally in the dark. His mom told him he was allergic to any light, fatally allergic, and that was enough for him. He never saw the light of day. They went to extreme measures for this. Ray got no birthday candles, he could only watch TV with the screen on low light and only for an hour at a time. Eventually, Ray got tired of this when he grew up and can't imagine why. He eventually snuck out and within hours was literally glowing and then turned invisible. He was invisible for 4 years until he helped save someone and made himself just like a beacon of light of a person, and then he was a superhero. Another relatively new Justice League team is Justice League Queer. It's an informal team technically, but I think they're cool, so I had to include them. The team is led by Sorcerer Extrano. He formed the hero team because he wanted to make sure other heroes who identified in the LGBTQ+ community knew they weren't alone. Extrano was the first DC hero to come out if we are looking at it using like our time. There are about 15 heroes on this team. Some highlights include Ray, who we talked about, Aqualad, Crush, and Batwoman. The team was first brought together during a pride parade. A villain showed up and literally made it rain on their parade. The rain was enchanted, so it was causing problems and not just like rain, because I can assure you regular rain would have meant nothing to an LGBTQ community parade. All it would have caused is for someone to start playing Rain on Me by Lady Gaga in a party. The comic itself, it's funny, plain and simple, I laughed. Extrano refers to the team as his JLQ kickline at one point. No notes, loved it, happy belated Pride Month team. Naomi McDuffie has crash landed into the DC universe. Literally, she is a teenage superhero disaster in a good way. Naomi is not from Earth. She is from some other undetermined alternate Earth. She ends up on the main Earth though. Naomi's Earth was subject to too much pollution and the ozone layer collapsed. When that happened, radiation started appearing. It was harmless to almost everyone except 29 specific people. They all got superpowers. Some of the 29 were bad people, some were good. They end up fighting each other. Naomi was not one of these heroes, but her mom was. When Naomi was born, the evilest of the 29 wanted her her out of the picture, so to save her, she was sent to Earth and adopted by the McDuffies. Growing up, she thought she was normal, well, as normal as a teen with transformation energy powers can be. In addition to energy manipulation, she can also fly, create portals, is physically enhanced, and heals very quickly. She needs to be able to heal quickly considering she fights barefoot, which is such a choice, but go off. After fighting with the villain of her world and losing, she goes to look for help. Crashing into a hot dog stand outside the Daily Planet, Superman is more than willing to assist. He calls him Batman because Batman has experience with troubled teens. Eventually, Naomi finds her place on Earth, taking the name Powerhouse and becoming affiliated with the Justice League and Young Justice. Every day I miss Justicia, the Justice League of Mexico. Justicia is Spanish for justice, so it's pretty on the nose with that one. The team first appeared in Suicide Squad, Most Wanted, El Diablo, and Amanda Waller 5 and 6. A few team members were in some Superman comics, and that's literally it. The team leader is El Dorado. He's Mexican Superman. He can fly, he's strong, he also teleports and does minor telepathy. There are 3 other members on the team, Akrada, a skilled martial artist, and acrobat capable of teleportation due to the Mayan artifact she wears. Then we have El Muerto, he's undead, which makes him hard to kill. And finally, we have Iman. He wears a suit of armor that gives him superior strength. Other than the name, there are direct connections between Justicia and the Justice League. El Muerto idolizes Superman, and Iman received a scholarship from Wayne Enterprises. Each individual hero has had a handful of appearances, but the whole team has 2. I think they are neat and should get more chances to show off together. Up next is Master Cola, better known as Insight, and that name is very fitting, of course, and I will tell you why. Insight's original occupation was information thief, but then Supergirl caught him and helped him get it together. After a brief stint in jail, he decided to use his thievery skills for good. He was going to steal the data from the Department of Extra-Normal Operations that exposed their shady behavior because he believed the public deserved to know. It's a tall order to fulfill, but he managed to get it done. He built himself some hero armor and infused his blood with nanotech. The nanotech would interface with his skeleton, which he cybernetically enhanced, as well as any wireless signal it would interface with too. He let himself be arrested by the DEO so that once inside the base, the nanotech in him would activate. This would lead to the systems being hacked and the info being gathered. Upon escape, Insight was able to take this information and load it into a database to be shared, exposing all that corruption. Insight becomes affiliated with the Justice League through the Justice Foundation, and that is a superhero think tank founded to improve humankind through the creation and application of innovative technologies and advancements in medicine. He got his dream job. Another DC character that I recently became obsessed with and want to steal their life is Eternal Knight. She was once one of King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, and now in the present day was part of Justice League Dark. So she's immortal and she is really good at sword fighting. She was the 13th Knight, but instead of being allowed in battle, she was assigned to watch Excalibur in the water the Lady of the Lake probably existed in. She wanted to go to battle, but she had babysitting duty. She is released from babysitting by Merlin's betrayal, so she sets out to stop him. Along the way, she meets Batman and the two work together briefly. Eternal Knight has a really cool suit of armor made of 9th metal. She joins the Justice League Dark in 2021, helping them in their battle against Merlin. Up next is Justice League Odyssey. They sound cool because they are. JLO was created for the Ghost Sector to clean it up and maintain order there. After Dark Knight's Metal and Justice League No Justice were over, the Ghost Sector showed up and no one really knew what it was. And you know what that means, time to assemble a team to check it out, Justice League Odyssey. The team is made up of Azariel, Starfire, Cyborg, and Jessica Cruz's Green Lantern. Many fans of this series praise Cruz as a high point of the series, finding her story very compelling. Jessica doesn't actually start out with the team. She was already in the Ghost Sector, assigned there by the Green Lanterns to patrol the area. It's during one of her patrols that she finds the team. The story follows the JLO as they aim to help the planets that exist in the Ghost Sector. The planets are being held captive, and to add on to that, Darkseid is gunning to take over the multiverse, so there is a lot happening, but it's a fun read. And finally, Alan Scott. The Earth's first Green Lantern has gotten a pretty stellar revamp. Alan Scott has been around since the 40s, but disappeared after the big thing, the big reset, but made his triumphant return in 2018. Scott's life took place in the 19 years. He joined the army in 1936. Scott was gay, and while in the army, he fell in love with a fellow engineer, Johnny Ladd. It was going really well until Johnny was seemingly eliminated by a burst of crimson energy from the ocean. He wasn't. It turns out Johnny was actually a Soviet agent whose mission was to get the crimson flame for Russia. I mean, he did get it and became the Red Lantern. Imagine having to fight your evil ex-boyfriend like this. Anyway, after Johnny died, Alan was discharged from the military because they didn't approve of the relationship. Alan wasn't doing well and checked himself into Arkham Asylum to be cured, which is very sad, but he met a woman there named Billy who carved him a lantern as a present. When Alan escaped, he took this lantern and jumped onto a train. On that train was his next boyfriend, train conductor Jimmy. They would hang out on the train together during Jimmy's shifts, but then one night, the train went over a bridge that blew up. So the train blew up and everybody died. But Alan, because what is a superhero without immeasurable amount of trauma, the reason Alan survived was the lantern from Billy. It started emitting a green light, healed Alan's wounds, and boom, now the Earth has Green Lantern. Alan joined the Justice Society of America. Then there was a moment where he was written out of history and then written back in, then had to deal with time travelers. Alan's been through a lot. Let's give him a break.
First appearing in Avengers Volume 6, Number 0 in October of 2015, U.S. Army Corporal Todd Ziller was the test subject of a procedure by Project Troubleshooter, America's latest attempt to recreate the super soldier serum. As you may be aware, this rarely goes well for anyone. In this case, the gaps of knowledge in Abraham Erskine's serum were replaced by gamma enhancements, mutant growth hormone, PIM particles, and Dr. Kurt Connor's lizard formula, because those have all been absolute winners in the past. Now this cobbled together serum coursing through Ziller's body turned him into a giant reptile very similar to Godzilla, for which he was given the alias of American Kaiju. He's basically Godzilla with an American flag painted on the top of his head. Now he was unleashed and attacked Avengers Island after Avengers Idea Mechanics tried to rescue Rick Jones from S.H.I.E.L.D. custody. This led American Kaiju to do battle with Avenger 5, basically a giant robot. Yes, it was pretty awesome, I'm not gonna lie. But next up, first introduced in the Sins of Sinister timeline, John Ironfire became so damn popular that he made it into the Earth 616 timeline. Ironfire is a mutant from Morocco with the power to turn his blood into metal that he can then control. In one of his first appearances, Ironfire uses his powers to create metal claws, kind of like Wolverine, but his abilities are so much more than just making claws. Ironfire can use his power to create horns, armor, and he's even created molten bullets that he shoots at enemies. During Sins of Sinister, he serves as a right-hand man to Storm in her Brotherhood and lives hundreds of years into the future, eventually looking a lot like Odin if I'm honest. After the conclusion of Sins of Sinister, he arrives in the main 616 continuity, where it's revealed that he is a member of the White Sword's 100 Champions, an army that basically wages an eternal battle in the lands of Amenth. Ironfire is the last of these warriors, arriving on Morocco with the White Sword's blade, Purity. He warns the Iraqi mutants that Genesis, the wife of Apocalypse, is coming to conquer the planet, and he stands with them in battle. He's pretty cool. Mark Spector became the Fist of Khonshu when he was chosen by Khonshu himself and was given the moniker of Moon Knight. Now years and years later, however, in Moon Knight Volume 9, Number 1 from July 2021, Mark learned that Khonshu actually has two hands, and therefore two fists. And the second one was Dr. Yahya Badir. Originally someone who didn't believe in higher deities, Yahya was attacked by vampires and left for dead when he met the Egyptian moon god Khonshu. He was then saved and became a worshipper of Khonshu known as Hunter's Moon, the god's second high priest and opposite of Moon Knight. After Moon Knight refused to worship Khonshu but appropriated his mission, establishing the Midnight Mission, Hunter's Moon moved to his territory and took over a free clinic in the neighborhood in order to keep watch over Moon Knight, intending to correct the vigilante whom he believed had strayed away from Khonshu's purpose. Hunter's Moon has all the memories of the previous characters who became Khonshu's Moon Knight, making him one of Marvel's best hand-to-hand fighters. He eventually began working as Spectre's ally at the Midnight Mission, and I highly suggest you read that volume of Moon Knight to learn more. Debuting in Powers of X #1, which released in early 2019, Rasputin 4 is one of the more interesting recent additions to the X-Men, but she's also one of the most overpowered. Created as possibly the most powerful of Mr. Sinister's chimeras, which were basically spliced together mutants who possessed more than one hero's power, Rasputin 4 possesses 5 powers. She has the osmium metal skin of Colossus, the telekinesis and telepathy of Quentin Quire, the force fields of Gunther Bane aka Eunice the Untouchable, the intangibility of Kitty Pryde, and just to top it all off, she has the healing factor of X-23 Laura Kinney, or basically Wolverine. So as you can imagine, she is a force to be reckoned with, and on top of that, she wields the Soul Sword. Currently, as far as I've read, Rasputin 4 is working pretty closely with Charles Xavier to fight back against Orcus and others during the fall of X. While she was initially controlled by Sinister, he himself undid that, and together the two actually saved the universe, with Rasputin doing most of the heavy lifting if we're being honest. More recently in the Fall of X event, she was called away by Professor X to join the crew of No Place X, venturing into the alternate timelines created by the Moira engine, hoping to wipe out Mr. Sinister clones in each one before they could become Dominions, and to prevent the Enigma from ever existing. Next up, the character of Scarlet Scarab has been around for a long time in Marvel Comics, like since the 1970s, but the latest hero to carry the mantle is pretty unique in that she first debuted in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Layla El-Fayouli first appeared in the Moon Knight Disney Plus series with Oscar Isaac as an adventurer and the wife of Mark Spector. In the series' final episode, she becomes an avatar of the Egyptian goddess of women and children known as Taweret. Layla gained the ability to fly using those sweet golden wings, as well as superhuman strength and agility. Now, because of how popular her character in the show became, Layla's Scarlet Scarab made her debut in the actual comics in Moon Knight #25 in July 2023. Similar to her origins in the show, she becomes an avatar of Taweret and reveals herself as the new Scarlet Scarab to Mark when he travels to the underworld, as Layla lost her life on a mission after becoming romantically involved with Mark Spector. Losing Layla was actually a factor that led Mark down a path that would eventually make him assume the mantle of Moon Knight, making her now, retroactively, tied to his comic book origin story. Now, maybe this next point is kind of cheating, but I'm making the entire new Ultimate Universe my next point. The Ultimate Universe used to be one of the most popular parts of Marvel Comics' publishing line. The Ultimate Universe was ended in the aftermath of Secret Wars, but alas, Jonathan Hickman has returned to bring the universe back to life with the miniseries Ultimate Invasion. Considering the current popularity of the multiverse concept, reviving Marvel's Ultimate Universe is a move long overdue, and Jonathan Hickman is definitely the perfect choice to script it. There's plenty of payoffs for those up to date with current Marvel continuity, as the evil alternate universe Reed Richards, also known as the Maker, who originated in the Ultimate Universe, escapes into a parallel dimension where he influences events through time to remake this universe into what he wants it to be. There are fresh takes on characters like Spider-Man, Black Panther, Tony Stark, Reed Richards, Thor, and many, many more. But this new universe also has completely original characters, like a lot of the ones currently making up the Ultimate X-Men created by Peach Momoko. Moving on, 1500 years ago in Baghdad, a group of rampaging monsters known as the Army of the Devil was banished and bound to ordinary objects by the sorcerer known as Red Owl. At the moment of his passing, Red Owl then sent the monster's cursed artifacts across the globe. On that day, Fadi Fadlalah's ancestors pledged to find the 1,000 cursed items and seal them away, and this duty was passed down through the generations, falling on Fadi's shoulders when he was a teenager, turning him into the superhero Amulet. Amulet first debuted in Magnificent Miss Marvel #13 from March of 2020 in Jersey City when one of the demons of the Army of the Devil surfaced at a fair in Sussex County. Now, as you might have guessed, Amulet teamed up with Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, destroying the artifact and banishing the monster. Now, he has teamed up with Kamala a few other times, but also with Miles Morales' Spider-Man, all while fighting and banishing more of these demons. Amulet essentially has the power to conjure Nazar's shields, which can vary in size, are powered and enhanced by love, can be used offensively, and even be used as platforms for Fadi to walk on air, similar to what Kamala did in the MCU TV show. Coming to us from Marvel's Voices Infinity comic number 100 from May of this year, 2024, Jun Sung Justin Jin is Kid Juggernaut. And if that is causing you to go, wait, what? Yeah, exactly. Justin here is the son of Jin Jung Woo, who in turn is the son of Jin Moon Ho, who we learn was the Juggernaut before even Kane Marco had the job. After Moon Ho gained the powers of Sidorak, he was forced to join the Japanese Imperial forces who were occupying Korea at that time. And when Sidorak ordered Moon Ho to attack his own village, Moon Ho refused and the power went to Kane Marco, who then took the life of Moon Ho. Now, when Justin was 17 years old, his father mysteriously passed away and Justin received his belongings, which included a fragment of the Crimson Gem of Sidorak. After making contact with the artifact, Justin was given the powers of the Juggernaut. Justin learned his family history with the gem from his mother, who witnessed the transformation into Juggernaut, and how his father refused to take the powers out of shame. Justin and his mother were then confronted by Malfagor, a follower of Sidorak who wished to acquire the power of the Juggernaut for himself and had taken the life of Justin's father looking for the gem. Justin and Malfagor battled in the streets of Vancouver until Dr. Stephen Strange intervened to help rescue Justin, and he eventually joined Avengers Academy. In our runner-up spot, those heroes who have taken up the name Jackpot have not had the greatest of luck, which is kind of funny. It goes without saying that the Jackpot name is not new, with the first being Alana Jobson, who appeared back in 2008. The first Jackpot is now nowhere to be found, and the second met her demise under its moniker, but the third time's the charm, and the third time, the moniker of Jackpot fell to none other than Mary Jane Watson. Mary Jane debuted as Jackpot in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, number 31 from August of 2023. Mary Jane basically became trapped in an alternate dimension with a man named Paul Rabin, and while only a few days passed in the real world, for them it was actually several years, leading them to grow close, adopt 2 children, and develop a slot machine device that generates random superpowers for MJ. After returning from the dimension, eventually Black Cat encourages MJ to lean into her new powers and become a superhero. Mary Jane then adopts the name Jackpot, which is actually also a callback to the very first words she ever said to Peter Parker. "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot." Pretty cool. And lastly, Marvel's new Gods series has been teased for months with backup stories in the pages of various Marvel Comics titles, giving us glimpses into what's happening and the premise of the story. Now, it's done. Each of the story's key players has shown up in these back pages, including what seems to be the main player, a guy called Wynn, also known as Sir Redwyn. Wynn is the avatar of the powers that be, an ancient entity or group that ultimately oversees all things strange and magical in Marvel Comics. Wynn received the role of Avatar over a millennium ago and has served faithfully in safeguarding the universe, without any of us knowing somehow. Thanks to his long life and his knack for always landing in hot water, he knows how to get himself out of a tight spot, even as he begrudgingly performs his obligatory duties. Now, I've seen him often compared to DC's Constantine, and I think that's actually somewhat accurate, especially in his personality. Wynn's position as the avatar of the powers that be is only one half of the overarching mythology introduced in the Gods comics, and he's the direct opposite of the powers that be are the natural order of things, and they oversee all things pure and scientific. Rather than having a single representative in the form of an avatar, like Wynn, the natural order of things is represented by 100 immortal individuals who comprise the Centum, and one of them is Wynn's wife, Eiko Maki.
Prodigy is a newer character who also happened to be one of the newest recruits to the main X-Men team at the last Hellfire Gala. Yeah, that didn't work out so well. He made his first appearance back in the 2003 New Mutants series in issue number 4, and would go on to join up with the new X-Men, become a leader for the younger X-Men on Utopia, serve as a member of the Young Avengers, and eventually come back around to Krakoa, serving as a member of X-Factor before eventually getting elected to join the X-Men, just in time for the roster to be brutally destroyed. Prodigy is known as David Lane. He is cool, but honestly pretty squishy. His mutant powers allow him to subconsciously absorb the knowledge and skills of those around him while they are in his vicinity. He did, however, gain back past knowledge he'd had at one point thanks to the Stepford Cuckoos, which ended up elevating him to super genius status, putting him on a similar level to some of the most brilliant minds in all of the Marvel Universe. Who do you think is the smartest person in the Marvel Universe, by the way? Let us know down in the comments. Also, stick around to the end of this video because because I got a crazy thing I'm gonna tell you about. It's crazy, trust me. Most people would never think of Miss Marvel inherently when they think of X-Men. Until, maybe, now that is. Kamala was recently made an Inhuman and mutant hybrid in the comics, where after her death and resurrection, it was established that she possessed an X gene kind of long dormant, which had now been activated by her resurrection. Some folks were not fans of this change, but honestly, it is oddly more in line with the creators of the character's wishes for her when they made her. Initially, Kamala was designed with the origin of mutant in mind, but as Marvel did not have the rights for X-Men at that time, they instead wanted to make her an Inhuman as part of a push to make, the Inhumans as popular, if not more so, than the mutants. And with Kamala being established as the first mutant in the MCU, Marvel decided to change her origin in the comics as well. As such, Kamala also recently joined up with the X-Men, eager to see what her mutant power set would be when it manifested, but also struggling to process the hate that mutants deal with on a daily basis. Rasputin 4 is an interesting mutant who actually has had two different first appearances, but both of them were pretty recent. Technically, these were different versions of the same character though. Rasputin initially appeared during Moira McTaggart's 9th life, but also appears during Sins of Sinister in an alternate timeline created by Sinister using Moira's mutant powers. While in the 9th life of Moira back in the Dawn of X days, Rasputin ends up dying, the version who exists in Sinister's created timeline from Sins of Sinister actually makes her way to Earth 616 and ends up in the main continuity, teaming up with the X-Men there. Rasputin is a chimera who is created by Sinister and who possesses as such the combined powers, abilities, and genes of Colossus, Quentin Quire's Kid Omega, Unis the Untouchable, Kitty Pryde, and Laura Kinney, aka Talon or Wolverine, whichever you prefer. Armor is the main character of the Ultimate X-Men series. She is known there simply as Hisako Ichiki, the same name as Armor's in the mainline comics. At the beginning of the series, she is set to graduate middle school, but we learn that she has not been attending class in the lead up to her graduation due to the sudden loss of her friend Tsubasa. Tsubasa was mistreated by the other students and struggled in school as a result. However, Hisako did not really know just how haunted Tsubasa was by this and was surprised when it was revealed that he'd later taken his own life. From this dark beginning, we are launched into the series and follow along with Hisako, who pulls on the thread of the origins of the mysterious being who appears to claim to avenge Tsubasa, known as Shadow or the Shadow, likely a version of the Shadow King, all while uncovering that Hisako herself has her own secret. She seems to be a mutant with superpowers that she struggles to understand and also struggles to control. Storm may have been around for a good long while in the comics, but this version of the character is completely new. She made her first appearance earlier this year in Ultimate Black Panther in issue number 1. Here, Aurora Monroe is a mutant with power over the elements known as Wind Rider. She fights against Khonshu and Ra alongside her partner and her lover, Killmonger. However, while Wind Rider is with Killmonger here, there is a prophecy involving her that tells of her destiny to deliver the heir to Wakanda seemingly alongside the King T'Challa. So we'll have to see how that goes. Mae Storm is my favorite, I think, of the new Ultimate X-Men characters. Mae Storm is clearly inspired by Storm, but really does seem to be her own character. She actually first appeared as one of the new Champions variant covers that we got, appearing on the cover of X-Men issue number 27, where she was drawn and designed by Peach Momoko. As part of that project, May was created to basically be a Storm protege. All the variants were designed as such, with younger takes on characters being showcased, so we can imagine what sort of sidekick for said character would be like. I think that's what I like most about May. While inspired by Storm, she also feels fully original in terms of her characterization, and is a very different person from the original Storm from the comics. Doubly so in May's case, who exists in the same universe as Ultimate Earth 6160 Storm, aka Wind Rider, but who, like I said, is, I just feel, very different. When it comes to Ultimate X-Men issue number 3, we actually get to meet a few new and exciting characters. Chiefly among the new mutants that we're meeting here are a group who also seem to be mutants, but who are not connected to Mae Storm or even to Armor. Other than the fact that, I guess, well, they all happen to be in the same class. I wonder if also them being in the same class is by someone's design. Among this group is Mori. Mori is believed to be a mutant, but it's still very early days in terms of the mystery of her character and that of Ultimate X-Men in general, to be honest. When it comes to Mori, she appears to be an alternate version of Molly Hayes, which would make sense considering some of the other characters featured here and their mainline connection to the Runaways team. In the main continuity, Molly's mutant power is that she has super strength, and she's actually considered even to be one of the strongest characters in Marvel. With Mori, we're not as certain of her powers or if she's really even an alternate version of Molly just yet, but of course time will tell. If she is Molly, I gotta say I am loving the Runaways inspiration that seems seems to be kind of mixed in throughout here. For some reason, Natsu gives me Kitty Pryde vibes, but it's actually believed that she might be an alternate to Scott Summers' Cyclops in the Ultimate X-Men series and universe of Earth 6160. People suspect this of Natsu because of her name, which means summer, as in, you know, summers perhaps, and because she has one red eye, which is concealed by an eye patch. Some have also compared her character design to that of Scott's, seeing some similarities and cues even in the tracksuit that she wears here, which people are likening to Scott's look. Natsu just made her first appearance, so we'll have to wait and see what role she will play in this very different X-Men series and team. This is a really interesting one. Nico Minoru of Earth 6160 makes her first appearance in Ultimate X-Men issue number 3, and seems to vary quite a bit from her Earth 616 main continuity counterpart, while also bearing some similarities there. Now in the main line, Nico is known for being a human who was born into a family of dark magic users who regularly performed ritual sacrifices. She ends up joining up with the Runaways and decides to rebel against her parents' plans for her, instead becoming a hero and force for good. In Ultimate, however, she instead seems to be another mutant who can detect others. At least that's what seems to be implied here. She also seems to have a magical air about her, and it's rumored that her parents are also tied to the supernatural in some way. So it's possible this version of Nico could be a magic user and a mutant as well. I mean, it definitely feels like it's a variation on the character. What's so interesting about Surge in Ultimate X-Men is that we don't really know what her motivation is or who she is working for yet, if anyone. She might just be doing her own thing. All we know is that Surge in this reality seems to be interested in exposing mutants, or at least one mutant out there in particular, and that is Hisako, who we know better in terms of her main continuity counterpart as Armor. That being said, it seems that Surge herself is a mutant, likely inspired by the mutant of the same name in the comics. Like her 616 counterpart, she seems to be able to harness the power of electricity, but unlike her 616 counterpart, this version of Surge seems to kind of have a better initial handle on her powers, not seemingly needing the gauntlets we're used to seeing her with in regards to her 616 version. I honestly can't wait to see what else we can learn about Surge as time goes on, and if she herself will get her own issue focused solely on her, kinda like how we had with May as well.